What first drew your attention to President Coolidge?
I've always thought the best way to try to prepare oneself for positions of responsibility was to read biographies. I've never found too many of those how-to books that I thought were very useful, but long ago I decided that reading about people who had handled great events and great tasks and great jobs, their mistakes as well as their successes, was one of the most valuable things a person could do. They're interesting too. And so I stumbled across a Coolidge biography, and then I wanted to read more.
That's great. You just spoke earlier at the conference. What were some of the main themes that you most wanted to touch on in that address?
I tried to address myself primarily to the young people in the room, the Coolidge senators and other students or recent students, to suggest that the nation is in a, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say we're in a difficult moment, and we have prepared the way for more difficult moments through the debts we've piled up specifically, and that the virtues and the principles and the policy approaches of President Coolidge are very, very well suited to the day if there are leaders, young leaders, who are prepared to help change the nation's mind about a few things and bring the nation along a course that President Coolidge would have recognized and, I think, advocated.
Is there anything that you have thought about maybe including in the address that maybe there wasn't enough time for, that maybe a good appendix to it?
I'll give you a small one. I realized I had meant to mention, it's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, but in keeping with his policy of modesty, humility, understatement, work as opposed to showmanship, I've always admired the fact that President Coolidge was the last president to send Congress a simple written State of the Union message, which had been the practice through history until a PR agent persuaded Woodrow Wilson that it would be a good public stunt to go up, present the speech in person in Congress. And I've thought for a long time we should go back to a written statement. It's become a spectacle, really.
Right.
Instead of a solemn public occasion, it's now sort of a sideshow, right, and almost embarrassing. So I've said for a long time I wish somebody would go back to the practice of which President Coolidge was the last. But I thought that his approach to that embodied several characteristics that are in short supply today.
Right. That's sort of a perfect embodiment of more of the limelight show window rather than the desk.
Yes, it is.
Right. I know generally his record is nowhere near studied enough, but is there, even within that record, something that you think needs more limelight in terms of studying it?
I think that the stereotype that too many historians imprinted on his memory completely fails to capture the humanity of the man. His interest, for instance, I quoted in the little talk his line that prosperity is an instrument to be used, not a deity to be worshipped. I think it was misunderstood, and still is maybe, that he was simply a green eye shade, make the books balance for their own sake, regardless of the consequences. No, his policies, whether the public fisc or just economics, all were about uplifting everyone, and doing so not just for materialistic reasons, but because it gives people the opportunity to be more fully human. So he was too modest, too tight-lipped to always have expressed that. But if you go dig into some of his writings and a few of his speeches, you find it.